right. I think I got everything figured out. Hour and a half later, something to do with my Logitech webcam drivers and Chroma Cam that is uninstalled now, and the performance issues in ZBrush were kind of linked to that, plus a Windows update and possibly a graphics card update. But I seem to have that back and working and running, and so I'll get to stream for 30 minutes today. Although, I don't know, it still feels a little, well, no, I guess it's better. I don't know. So I'm going to switch over here to Smooth Stronger. Yeah, just what I wanted to, you know what, still, I'm losing something. There's something going on literally with OBS and ZBrush that's just not behaving nicely. Like I can sculpt here, and it's fairly responsive, but then rotating, I guess it kind of works. So there's just like little stutters here and there, and then when I switch over to Google Chrome, it kind of works. I don't know. So I think I figured it out. I had to uninstall a bunch of stuff, do another Windows update apparently, updated my graphics card drivers just in case, and I think I'm back ready to go. So anyway, I can sculpt for 30 minutes there. Hey everybody, sorry about the late start. Hopefully I'm narrowing things down after the last Windows update, so at least ZBrush is usable. It does seem to be a little bit quirky still, but we'll make do with what we've got. So going through here, yeah, there's still something going on. Like, this is a nothing mesh. I should be able to pan without having it stutter lag. But like I said, we'll make do. So we're going to keep going on with that owl that we were doing for the next 30 minutes or so. Hopefully I can sculpt without too much of a problem here. I'm a very impatient sculptor, so if it's not working perfectly, it's a little bit painful to use. But we can go through here with our Damien standard brush. We can start carving in our base shapes here. This is from, if you haven't, if you're kind of just joining us, we did this in last week's stream for Pixelogic's channel, which I lasted about an hour before I had to turn the computer off because it was really underperforming as far as, I don't know what's going on with the hardware, software, driver updates. Like, there's something wacky going on between all of those and OBS. And possibly my Logitech camera. So I'm gonna troubleshoot those this weekend. See if I can't figure out what's going on there. Karthik says, your tutorials are awesome, but suggests take the class a little bit slower. You have all the control in the world on YouTube, just in case you're new to the internet. If you go to my YouTube channel and you're playing a video, since I can't cater to the lowest the slowest person, what I do is I just talk at a normal rate, and then anytime you're on any of my videos, I'll walk you through this. This will be a good tutorial. So let's say, okay, I want to watch this video. And I'm watching this video, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's talking way too fast. If he talks slower, number one, he'd bore the hell out of himself. Number two, he'd bore the hell out of, let's say, half of his audience. So I don't want to alienate the half of my audience where it's not a problem. So what I would do is go down here to this little gear icon, go to playback speed, and you can actually slow me down to like 0.75 or 0.5 or 0.25. This makes me sound a little weird, but of course so does this. And then you can stay in this range. For me personally, I hate watching YouTube videos at anything slower than like 1.75, and usually 2 is just fine. So again, you know, I could talk slower, but boy, that would be painful. And I don't know that it'd be a better viewing experience for a lot of my viewers. So if you're a slow listener, you have all the control in the world. In fact, there's a hotkey you can use. If you go here, I think it's like Shift and yeah, is it Shift or Control, Alt, Shift? I think it's Shift and left. So if you do Shift period on your keyboard and then Shift comma on your keyboard, you can slow me down as much or as little as you want. But like I said, whenever I watch a YouTube video, yeah, there's something going on. Why? Whenever I watch a YouTube video, I can't watch at normal speed. It's actually when you start listening to things at fast speed and then you slow it down to normal speed, or you start a new video on normal speed, you realize, wow, people talk slow. So, you know, your mileage may vary on that. So let's see here. So we've got this. You know, if you wanted to make changes to this, you could go through here. And yeah, you're right. So Death Star's Kitty says if you use Chrome, check that usage. CPU spikes when Chrome was doing anything. Let me turn off Chrome and see if that helps any. Because you know, like I said, I need OBS on. My stream cam I had to turn off because it was weird. It was I would turn on the stream cam, and then it would lag ZBrush, so I'd turn it off, play in ZBrush, and turn it back on, and then ZBrush was fine. And it seems to be doing okay. I've got no Chrome tabs open, but if I start, I'm sorry, I'm just sitting here troubleshooting hardware problems. But yeah, there's something going on. Oh boy, there's something going on between, because I guarantee if I turn OBS off, I'm fine. Like my Google Chrome is snappy, ZBrush is snappy. As soon as I turn OBS on, let me see if I can, let's see, so stream cam, still fine. Yeah, there's just something weird going on. So anyway, let's see here. We got this, then we got his little chin hairs, and so at this point you can start breaking this off into different pieces if that makes it a little bit easier for you to kind of work. This is more of just form block out here, so just while it's simple and easy, I'm not looking for any details here. This is where I would start like rebuilding pieces. If I wanted to build in like eyelids for this guy, this is where you would go in and you would say, that's okay. I would duplicate this off. You know what, we'll just do one eyelid for now, so we'll hold down Control Shift. We'll turn off X symmetry, and we'll just get rid of that eyeball there. We'll hit Delete Hidden. And then this one, we'll go ahead and apply those subdivisions, and then we will go to Geometry, Delete Lower, and then hold down Control Shift. And we'll switch over here to Trim Curve. And we'll duplicate this one more time so we can do upper and lower eyelids. So just really quickly, I'll say give this an eyelid here. And you can go in and form this. And I mean, I guess you could, depending on, I mean, looking at reference, not a whole lot of eyelids on an owl. But if you wanted to have that in there just for usability purposes, if you need to put geometry in there so you could perform a blink or whatever you needed to, you can go ahead and add that in. And then we'll go back here to our other one here. And then we'll say trim curve. This one will just cut, I don't know, straight across here. There we go. So if you want to move along these surface normals, one thing you can do is you can go in here to Q Mesh Polygroup All, and then you can hold down Shift while you pull out. And then same thing for this one, but we've already kind of mushed it around, but you can go through here. Now these ones you can go ahead and you could Z-remesh these fairly easily. So if we took this one, for example, and we told it to keep groups, smooth groups at 1 is fine since it's just going to smooth that circular edge anyways, and we could say target polygon count of half. You can also turn this adaptive size down to 0, and that'll give you just nice even quads here. So if you want to work with a little bit nicer geometry while you go, you can do that. Let's go ahead and turn that down. Let's see. Yeah, so the Windows update it was fine, and then the next day when I logged in this morning, there was another Windows update, and then I blue screened, and then I popped all the USBs out of my computer. I had to have the keyboard and the mouse in there. Everything was fine, and then as soon as I plugged in my webcam, it was doing something weird. So I uninstalled the stupid Chroma Cam thing that doesn't even work that well, anyways. And then as soon as I launched OBS, it started really stuttering bad again. And then if I turn off my stream cam, it worked. My computer worked fine. So there's something going on there. And also, yeah, maybe I'm 2019.1.2 right now, so maybe that's something to do with it anyway. Is polygroup still working under 2019.1.1? I'm on 2019.1.2, but it should be. If you mean just like doing a polygroup, or you mean just like keeping groups when you're doing a Ziri mesh, it should. So Ziri mesh, keep groups, smooth groups on, depth size down to 0, Ziri mesh. Should work fine, and then we'll just do like half. Yeah, that seems to be working okay. But at the end of the day, this is just getting a little bit nicer geometry or lower res geometry so you can move around that envelope a little bit easier. But if you needed to make this all one piece of geometry, or if you needed to dynamesh this together to get that envelope and then retopologize it, that would be something you'd have to do. But we'll go ahead and go back here. And then, so now these eyelids, since I did just one eye at a time, what I can do is I can take this upper eyelid and lower eyelid, merge them into one one subtool, and then we can go to like mirror, mirror and weld, turn on X symmetry, and then that'll go back. Yeah, and it's getting laggy again. Let's see. Okay. So anyway, we're just going through here, and we're going to block out this face here. And I really hope this works itself out, because it's going to be really painful to continue streaming if I have to deal with a laggy computer. Now this piece down here, I can either replace completely with just like a sphere if I want to have it a separate piece of geometry, or I can go through here and I can just mask it out and I can just pop it off. So we can go through here and be like, okay, this is vaguely the shape that I want, but I want to be able to work on it separately. And you can always pop something off, work on it separately, and then dynamesh back together. That's always an option available to you. But here we can go to like split unmasked points. That'll go ahead and split this one off, and then I'll go ahead and just do a close holes, mirror and weld, W, control tap this one, and then just move this in. Control drag this in so I can just go ahead and give that a little bit of breathing room. And now I've got that piece hanging out by itself. And then this piece here, again, you don't have to close holes. You can just re-dynamesh. It'll close holes for you. And then you can just go through here and smooth that out a little bit. So now we have a little chin piece here. And now the inside of that mouth, I would probably put a mouth bag in here. Trying to figure out the best way I would do that. So this is kind of the inside of this mouth here. I'm going to move this down so really it is just the chin, and then I'll have this one control the mouth bag, or where you can actually just have something that just blocks the light back inside of here. Like so. And then when you retopologize this, this will just be like the roof of the mouth here, and then you could put a tongue in here. So we can just keep knocking this back so that the roof of the mouth is actually the beak. And I suppose you could maybe Boolean this out, but... And then here's where things can kind of fall apart, because his eyeballs are actually big enough to start interpenetrating in his area. So this is where you can maybe fake it in 2D. In 3D, it's not going to work that well. So you might have to add some beak thickness, or just go back in here and just sculpt that back out. Or you can move your eyeballs apart, but I'm going to leave them there for now. Cool. Thanks for showing up, everybody. I'm streaming for another 15 minutes. I'm using a drawing tablet, so it's just a little bit faster for me to move around. So if I need to go up here and do, grab a menu or go to my custom menu and move my mouse around, I can do it very quickly, as opposed to a Cintiq where I'd be like having to move my whole arm across 30 inches of real estate. Plus, I don't have to sit there and lean over a light bulb for 10 hours a day and keep my arm in the air, which helps my workouts. Can't bench press if your right arm is numb and fatigued from working the day before. And it's just an overall more ergonomic experience. I can kind of lean back and work, and I don't have to just lean over. You might lose a little bit of fidelity if you're doing like very, very precise ink line work, but since I don't really do any of that, it doesn't really affect me. So go ahead and push this in here. And so this is just, again, we're just doing the block out. depending on how you wanted to put feathers on this guy, you could go through and just do alphas just to kind of get a stylized look. This here, I'm going to make his arm a little bit more usable. Oh, here's a good thing. So if you get this kind of thing where it's like, whoa, what is going on with my rotations? Just do a quick mirror and weld, and then that'll get these guys working back together. So we'll go ahead and rotate this so his shoulder is about where I would expect it. And again, this wing I would probably keep separate as a seam. You could blend it all together. It gets a little bit weird. Let's go ahead and just do an auto groups and then a mirror and weld so I can isolate this one. It can get a little bit weird, like trying to rig feathers and arms and entire body. So you could just do like this entire thing could be dynameshed together and then retopologized, but you'd have to be very careful to make sure that if you are going to create an envelope that you have space separating, you know, the head and the neck and the hair, just to give you a little bit more room, especially if you're going to do extreme stuff like, well, not really extreme, but if you ever was like, oh, look of surprise and my neck pops up, if you retopologize it and you don't add neck geometry, then now you're in trouble. So a good rule of thumb is to go ahead and just model possibly in an extreme pose, so you know if this is the most extreme pose this thing has to hit, you don't need to worry about not enough geometry to support the animation that you want to do. However, it might look a little bit awkward while you're working and getting approvals. So like sometimes it's a good idea to just be like, hey, this is my quick block out for my approval. Does everybody like it? And everybody's like, okay, it looks good. Then you can go through here and you can do like, okay, so if he's really going to kind of do a pose where he's going to stretch his neck out and he's really going to, you know, let's do a local sim here. We'll go ahead and go down this axis. If he's really going to, you know, move his wings out really far, do a really extreme facial expression, you can go ahead and dial that in. But, you know, and you can also just do test rigs and make sure that everything's working as expected. So if we did want to do a neck, a lot of talking about it, not a lot of doing about it. We'll go in here to cylinder, and we'll just put a cylinder right in here. Make sure you have X symmetry turned on, and then we'll go ahead and say split mass points. And because we're just in Dynamesh land, I'm going to go ahead and say run a crease tolerance, turn on dynamic, apply, and then we can just Dynamesh this. It's going to inherit the Dynamesh properties that you inserted it on. So if this Dynamesh was set at 56, then this Dynamesh is set at, oh, I'm sorry, I drew it in with this one, but I drew it onto the body, so it actually inherited these Dynamesh properties, which is fine. So we'll just Alt-tap this, and then we'll go in here. Let's turn up our smooth strong just a bit. And now, if you ever did an extreme neck pose, or even if this isn't the most extreme, at least you know you have neck geometry in there that you can rebuild, and then you can squash this head back down. So, I don't know. And then this, now that we have his head off of his body, we can go through here and be like, okay, he actually needs a little bit of a shoulder transition here. You can go in here with your clay brush, or if you wanted to do a sharp transition, go in here with your Damien standard, and you can start carving in like big blocky forms, depending on what kind of thing you're looking for. If you wanted to do like almost a mechanical style, or you can start that way and then just go back and smooth, just a way to kind of get your forms looking a little bit better. So I'll go ahead and put like a little tuft in here where that could be maybe feathers. And then this neck, I think, is a little bit extreme, even for, you know, trying to hit an extreme pose. I'm going to hit W. We're just going to drag this gizmo, and we're just going to aim it right along here, and we'll go ahead and shrink that down. And then for the head, we can go in and move multiple subtools here. We'll go ahead and unhash that neck by Control-Shift-clicking it. And then I think we're good to go. So just, again, just a little separation in here. And, oops. That's always fun. Just a little separation in there. And then I think we're good. And looking at other owls too, some of them have like those little horned owls. You can go through here. I can use Move Acu, or I can use just the Move brush or a snake hook brush if I want to, and I can start sculpting in like a little look like that. What else? You could also, if you wanted to build that into the shape language of the eyebrow, which I see on some of these too, you can go in here and you can like just pull this up and have that kind of break the silhouette as well. Just kind of depends on the look you're going for And then just, again, always working in the round, always making sure that the flow of this is about what you would expect. You know what, and that looks fine. I think we could live with that. So we'll do something like that. And again, just blocking out, going in here with our Damien standard and holding down Alt. And this is all stuff that I would have to decide, do I want to do actual feathers for this, or do I want to do stylized feathers, or do I want to do an alpha or a vector displacement alpha to go through and start detailing this guy up. How realistic do I want it to be? Do I want to use nano mesh or fiber mesh to kind of lay in the feathers here? But at the end of the day, also, if you're going to have feathers on here and it's going to be something that's just going to be driven by the underlying mesh, do I want to put that in as a texture and then have just a base mesh here that I would go through and retopologize? So we talked a little bit about topology last time, about, you know, getting this concentric ring around here. These aren't really concentric. If I wanted to rebuild this, I would just manually go in and rebuild concentric rings all the way around the mouth to get the maximum amount of flexibility while you're doing mouth poses. On a beak, you could also build this beak in here. So it's like, okay, he opens his mouth a lot, and I don't know what kind of range I would be getting out of doing blend shapes for a beak, you know, if you're having to talk and stuff, and while this beak is moving, that would have to drive this geometry around it. So if you'd have, I mean, you can make it all one blend shape once you've retopologized it. If you go to my YouTube channel and typed in ZBrush Maya Blend Shapes plugin, we kind of cover that, and you can go through here. And on this particular instance, this is for the ZBrush Summit 2018 cinematic video. You can go through there, and you'd have multiple blend shapes drive, like your eyelashes versus your eyelids and stuff, if you wanted to keep them separate pieces of geometry. If you didn't, then you would just merge everything together and make a blend shape out of those. So I can go ahead and share, copy. Throw that in here. Let's see. Sorry if I missed some stuff. I'm kind of behind. Let me go back through here. And again, sorry I'm starting so late. Computer issues this morning. Real fun stuff. Just what I want to do in the morning is troubleshoot hardware and software. Is there any option like Instalod for optimizing mesh other than Instalod? You can use Houdini. I think Maya and Blender and Modo all have varying degrees of, I mean, you can always triangulate things and decimate things down in other programs. It's really what Instalod does well is transferring those attributes and maintaining your vertex normals in a good way. Raycasting for normal maps. Does ZBrush in the new version do raycasting for normal maps, subtool to subtool, as opposed to within the subtool for baking? Oh, that's a good one. It's been a long time since I baked in anything other than Marmoset, and even then it would be like Substance Painter, just for quick preview bakes. So on the ins and outs of that, I'm not exactly sure. Yes, some kind of demonic owl. Yes, and again, that seems like I missed some comments up here. Hold on. Oh yeah, ZBrush settings. Okay, thank you, Bertram, for posting that on my QBrush and my Gumroad page. Intro to ZBrush files, and then you can get, if you wanted to, you could just get this interface and all my hotkeys. Not that it's making your own interface setup is really easy. You can find that on my YouTube channel as well. So I would say, you know, give that a shot too. So you can just kind of make it, you know, what you use, because what I use is really at this point more out of habit than anything that's like, oh, I have to have this. I'm sure there's better ways for me to utilize ZBrush. I just, you know, it's a little bit of complacency, a little bit of laziness. And also the kind of work I do might be different. So if you do a lot of like photogrammetry work, or you do a lot of stylized work, there's probably a lot of brushes and settings that you would want to use that I don't really go into all that often. So anyway, we'll just go ahead and keep pulling these down. We'll go ahead and do the inflate brush here. And if you wanted to do variants of these, of course, you could go over here. You can duplicate this off, or you could save a layer. If you are going to do saving a layer, make sure you don't re-Dynamesh, because that's going to change your vert order. So just something to keep in mind here. I'm going to actually pad his eyeballs a little bit more. And this ear, let's see if we can pull this forward. And these are good for expression too. Like eyebrows obviously are good for expression, but if you wanted to do like, oh, sad bird and, you know, alert bird, just having that kind of feature is sometimes useful too. Of course, that's going to depend on who approves the designs and stuff, and if it's appropriate for what they're thinking. But that's something you just, you know, put it in there, vet it, and then you're good to go. So there we go. And then his little fat body, his feet, we kind of blocked in here. We can actually start refining these feet just a little bit here. So we're going to go through, and I'm going to say inflate or deflate a little bit, and we'll turn these into little tubes. Now, of course, you could start with a primitive tube, which would be like your like a primitive ring. You could start with that and then chop it off, but this seems to be okay. I'm looking to see, it looks like a lot of owls have 3 front toes and then 1 back toe. What we could do, let's go ahead and do an auto groups, and then we'll do turn off LSIM, we'll do a mirror and weld, hit W, control tap one of these, control drag, and then we'll just rotate this back around. And we'll call this our rear foot. It doesn't have to be super detailed, obviously, especially if he's just going to be kind of just little baby feet like this. Now, of course, for our extreme pose, if he is going to get up and walk around, you're going to see we're having that mirroring issue. Just again, mirror and weld. We can actually put in a little bit of legs here, so we can then go through here. At this point, if you wanted to just kind of mask, invert that mask, and then hit W and just move this stuff down, that's probably good enough for government work. Go ahead and raise that Dynamesh resolution up just a bit. So good enough, but if you wanted to maintain a very, very stylized form or shape language, you know, you could also insert cylinders and then have that kind of be a little bit more stylized. Now, speaking of cylinders, I would want to do that as a separate piece of geometry for these legs. I'm going to go into transparency and ghost and just drag out some little pegs here. You're going to see when I drag that out, if you drag out and then drag back in, that'll go ahead and shrink that down for me, and then we can just move this into place and we'll rotate it. And this will kind of be his, hold on, let's reset my axis here so we can LSIM, turn LSIM on so you can go down that individual axis. And then now we can go through here and kind of put these legs about where they should be. And in fact, like I said before, let's go ahead and do a split unmasked points. Then I go ahead and split these off to their own subtool, and then alt tap the feet, and then we can just move these feet down. Now, if the feet and the legs I want to be in the same subtool, I can just merge these, but I am going to spread these toes out. Again, just for animation flexibility. If I Dynamesh them now, you're just going to have web toes. So again, I'm going to do an auto groups, mirror and weld, W, control tap one of these, and then just kind of, let's go ahead and spread that out. And we could even reset this gizmo so we can kind of thin it out. And actually, I kind of wish there was a scale along camera. That would be nice. So I didn't have to do this thing. There we go. So now I know when all of these things get merged, in which case, let's do something like this. And if you wanted to have like a very, very precise, like, you can maintain your polygroups if you wanted to cut rings around here. If the only one you really care about is this top one, make sure you go in here and group by normals, or you can just group this top part here, and we'll do a mirror and we'll make them same both sides, so that when you merge these legs onto these feet, you can always have a polygroup for this, and then hit Control W to have a polygroup for that. So let's make this more obvious. So if you were to zero, so if we Dynamesh this, we can still maintain that ring. You could also Boolean this, and that'll probably give you an even better result. So I'm going to hold down Control Shift and just grab a little piece of this, do Control Shift A, mask, invert that mask, and then I can just go through here and kind of pull in these areas here. Like so. And then we'll invert that. You know what, just to make this work a little bit faster, You know what we could have done? We could keep this. Just go into your move brush or go into move topological. Let's go into auto masking and we'll turn on topological masking. So now the first subtool I click will be what moves, and then I can just kind of refine this. And again, if you're just working quick, just dynamesh it and call it a day. But just to kind of give you another example of like, well, if you did want a very precise result at the very top or something like that, you could achieve it just through making a union mesh first. So let's say this is what we want, and we do want a polygroup at the top here. If I want that to be a little bit nicer looking, let's go ahead and say, let's do a crease tolerance, turn on dynamic, let's go ahead and hit apply, and then we've got that result. And this is going to be the feet. Now, in order to union these things together, let's go ahead and hit W, and we're going to go in here and we're going to say, we apply that? Yeah. Well, first go down here, let's delete lower on our geometry, and then we're going to go over here to W, gear. We're going to remesh by union, and that's going to give us just a, a Boolean mesh. And then now that we have that ring there, again, we can go in here and we can do our zero mesh. We'll do half, adaptive size down to 0, keep groups, smooth groups at 1 is fine. And then now we have that result, and it gives us a very, very nice, precise transitions between these shapes. Zero mesh, you would lose that nice surface, that nice hard edge. But if you use union groups with polygroups, you won't. So if we go through here and we do another half, that looks fine. And if you wanted to replace this cap with, let's go ahead and isolate that, invert it, delete hidden, go in your Z modeler brush, BZM, and go to close convex hole, and we'll just go ahead and cap that off. So now we have a decent pair of feet, relatively quickly. All right, and then we'll go through here. Yeah, I still feel it. I still feel like there's just something crappy going on with performance, but hopefully it'll get itself worked out. I don't know. I'll update my drivers and hope for the best. So now he's got a very fat transitioning to a little bit thinner, and then on the back end here, we can actually rotate this forward. Or we could just go through here and mask this and blur it out a little bit, and we'll see if we can't. Kind of dial in these shapes a little bit more, what we're looking for here. And again, if you're doing something very, very stylized, it might be better to have this as a big ball, this is a cylinder, this is kind of an oblong sphere, and then you can just go through and really kind of fine-tune those individual shapes. And then when you're ready and you have all of your forms figured out perfectly, then it's just a simple matter of dynameshing, smoothing those transitions, and then remeshing, and you've basically got a very nice stylized character, as opposed to going through here and just kind of like sculpting, 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 touch, 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 touch. So keep that in mind. This arm here, again, if we were going to put clothes on this guy, we want to make, I don't know, owl clothing? I don't know, maybe you put a nice little suit on him. But I guess because owls would be intelligent with a little pair of glasses on. If we want to make a little pair of glasses, let's go in here to cylinder. And we'll go ahead and pop those in there. And we'll go ahead and say split mask points. And we'll go ahead and say, let's do Shift D to turn off dynamic. And we'll go ahead and pull in just a little pair of spectacles here. So we'll go ahead and say, okay, where do I want these to end up? And I'd say somewhere about here. There's a couple different ways to go about making this thickness. If we go in here and we go to inset flat island, you can go through here and you can say, oops, and region. You can say inset this region and then just tap. And then you can say Q mesh polygroup ball and just boop, pop that back through. Alternatively, you could also say, let's go ahead and do under polygroups, we'll do a group by normals, and then we'll do a mirror and weld, and then we'll say, okay, I'm going to isolate this one, we'll delete hidden, and then now we could do inset polygroup ball, and go through here, and then you could say delete polygroup ball, you could delete that, and then you could say Q mesh polygroup ball and give yourself some thickness. Also, you could just go through here and you could say Q mesh polygroup ball, pull this out, and then pull this through. So a lot of different ways, and there's probably 5 more ways to do that. But really just kind of thinking through the problem there. And again, I like to do a quick group by normals and then mirror and weld just to get me polygroups on all sides here. So we'll say this is our start of our glasses here. And then, you know, I'm not going to put glasses that go all the way back here and tuck around his ear or something like that, but we do need to bridge this middle section here. You can try taking one of these and going, because I started with a cylinder 12, and maybe that was not the greatest choice, but we can try doing like delete single poly and then maybe bridge 2 holes here to here. And then you can just kind of pull through. If you wanted a different transition, you can do like bridge circle, and that'll kind of keep it a little bit more, maybe a little bit more rounded, although it does seem to kind of pinch up there. There's a lot of different options in here, but spline's usually okay. And you could also just go through here and just do a really simple bridge and then mirror and weld, and then you can just go in here and fine tune this. Go to unmask mesh center, reset your pivots, and then just kind of manually go through here and pull these points around like so. But again, if that was like, you know what, I wanted to bridge these two, but I wish the transition was smaller, I wish these maintained the same width, that's where I would go in and do something like, let's do a crease PG. We're going to divide this, oops, crease PG, divide, delete lower, and I can get rid of some of this. I mean, you can keep this in here if it helps your edge loops, but I'm going to go in here to insert single edge loop and just hold down Alt. And that'll just give me a subdivided cylinder, and now these widths are a lot more similar. So now I can go through here. You can also do bridge 2 polys, so you can go here to here. It's going to be a straight line, but then again, you can go through here and you can slice this up, or say insert multiple edge loops, and you can go through here and just start adding those, and then you could go and just mask, unmask mesh center there, go to unmesh mesh center, and then just go through and dial this in as needed. And then we go ahead and mask these out, and then there we go. So again, however you want to do it, bridge it. And then again, I'm always going to want to do another group by normals, and then mirror and weld, and then crease level of 2, smooth so div of 3. We'll do another crease PG, or we'll do uncrease all crease PG just to make sure. Let's do crease level of 1, give that a nice fall off, and then now I've got a little pair of glasses on him. It's also maybe a little bit nice to see like pupils on this guy. You could model those in if you wanted to just do like, I wouldn't recommend doing this, but you could just hold down Alt and tag those and then just pop in some pupils just so you can kind of see where those things go. But generally speaking, I would want those as a different material, or I would do like my Earthworm Jim eyes, where I would go through here and I would maybe take all of these out. So we'll say delete polygroup all, and then if you wanted to do a goopy outside layer as a separate mesh, that's when you can go to close convex hole and you can kind of pull these out. And you can duplicate this off and then do another version where you go down here to display properties and you flip your normals and then you pull inwards. And then we go ahead and flip that back. And then we can hit Control W. And on this one we can do a crease polygroup. Let's crease level of 1, smooth so div of 3. And then now we have this. We can put pupils on the back. We can do colored eyes on the back there, but at least you can kind of see a little representation of that. Now, of course, if you wanted more control over the width of your eyes, you could do a more, I think I brought in like this looks like a 12 or a 16 maybe. You could do any number when you go to initialize. You can also, again, just hit Control D to subdivide and then delete lower, and that'll just give you more divisions to kind of work with. And now you can be like, you know what, I didn't want this one and I didn't want this one, but this one's perfect. And you can just take this. Or if you wanted just a little bit bigger, you could say make this part, and then just again delete polygroup all. Go over here to flip, close convex hole, flip. And the reason I'm giving this its own polygroup is so I can go in here and say crease PG, and then I can keep that a little bit creased around that polygroup there. Something like that. So, is there a way to bridge edges in an entire series of polys in ZModeler with just a row or a curve rather than just doing it one at a time? Yeah, you should be able to. It's kind of like, I mean, it kind of depends on how your geometry's set up. You can use QMesh to say, let's go in here and make polymesh 3D, and geometry, edge loop. What are we looking for here? Edge loop, delete loops. So if you had geometry like this, and you were like, let's QMesh, well, first of all, let's go to, again, group by normals. So we go here, we go QMesh, polygroup all, and then we'll say polygroup, polyloop, and we'll say QMesh. So if you wanted to bridge like all of these, you can just use QMesh to bridge, because it'll just be sticky. And that's going row to row, and you would have to make sure, I mean, you could do this entire thing if you wanted to. Or again, we could do another group by normals, and you could just go snap. There you go. Perfect. Or you can pick and choose which ones you want to snap, and if you want to do that with radial symmetry turned on, which might be useful, transform, activate symmetry in the Y radial count of, say, 8. And then you can mark these two and then snap those. So now you've got a little wheel. Do a crease tolerance. Something like that. How do you orient a gizmo to a transposed mesh? With your gizmo, you should be able to just alt-tap any normal, any geometry normal you have, even something on a complex object. You can tap any surface normal, or you can just manually go in, and if it's something vague like, I don't know, a cartoon blobby chicken arm, you may have to go in there manually and just kind of orient it down the joint here. So I'll start here, and then I'll start there to find like that basic surface direction, then I can go through here and I can kind of modify that, if that's what you're asking. And again, I'm all over the place, so sorry if I missed something. Mike, I sent you an email a while back. Are you behind on emails? Yes, I am. I need to go back through my personal emails and see where I left off. Still working on Halo. E3 is on the way. Did you watch the Death Stranding trailer? I didn't watch the Death Stranding trailer. Sounds cool. Let's see. Organic. Cool, cool. Yeah, sorry, everybody. And then my streams, usually what I try to do is the first Tuesday of the month on Pixelogic and the first Thursday of the month on my channel. I'm going to try to stream more, of course. Oops, looks like we have a little bit of an error on this eyeball. So if you go over here and I'll click this eyeball, you're going to see a little, I mean, you can go through here and you can do a weld points on the geometry modified topology, but in that case we could have also done a mirror and weld to get that one mirrored over. Realistic feathers are tough. How do you make it? There's a really good PDF on that I can send you a link to, or you can Google Pablo Munoz Gomez or Poblander or ZBrush guides, and there's feathers in ZBrush, and this will walk you through a bunch of different methods for creating all sorts of types of feathers and feather creation. And maybe, you know what, maybe I'll do a stream on that next time, where I just live stream that PDF. If he's cool with that, I'll have to ask him. No, Roman, I've been totally slacking on my streaming schedule. I'm trying to get one of those people, or trying to get some things set up so that I can get back into content creation, which is working out just slower than I would have liked. Is there a shader material that averages smooths and normals of the mesh, like simulating smooth groups in Max or Maya? Not that I'm aware of in ZBrush, but there might be. Let's see. Oh, thanks for you showing up. Glad all the videos are helping everybody. You can try posting a link in here if it'll let you. Can you show again how to put a hole in something? That kind of just depends on if you're like this one, for example. Let's see. So we'll say QMesh polygroup all. If it is just simple geometry, you can go through here and you can say QMesh a single poly and just punch a hole through that. You can Boolean a hole if you wanted to. So in this case, we could say, we'll go ahead and turn on dynamic, and we'll do another crease tolerance here. And under the subtool here, we can go ahead and append a, I don't know, a cylinder. And then the cylinder here, go out of solo mode, we can say the cylinder subtractive, turn on live Boolean, and then we can just punch a hole through something like this. That makes sense. Of course, you'd have to, you know, in this one, in this case, I would say, I'll go ahead and crease, turn on dynamic, get a nice smooth hole, and then you could try zero-meshing this result after you do the Boolean. That would just be down here under Boolean dynamic subdivisions, or if you have it in folders, you can just Boolean that way. Good. Just got caught up, and I'm gonna have to leave soon, but I don't know. We got 15 minutes worth of sculpting in, and I think I've got my hardware issues semi-figured out. Maybe. It's hard to say. It still feels a little bit laggy to me, but I just closed Chrome and it seems to be working better. There was something going on weird with Windows updates and something else in Logitech webcams. So anyways, now this shape over here, this is about what we want. Again, you can have move turned on with topological turned on, or just move topological in that brush, in your brush menu. But this is where you can go through and you can kind of fine tune your overall shapes first before you commit to, you know, dynameshing and zero meshing. So if we go in here to like move AcU, we can kind of just pull this out here. So back and down, and then you would probably need another back angle here. So we can hit W, control tap this one, control drag out a copy. We can shrink it down a little bit. Let's turn on LSIM for this, and we can. And actually, in that feather PDF, there is like wing anatomy, which is useful too. So it's got it all. And then from here, you can use this to dictate, like, do I want nanomesh wings? Do I want fiber mesh to control feathers? Do I want to replace those with like micro mesh replacement or fiber mesh replacement? A lot of different options for the wing part. But let's see, and then hit W and control tap this if you want to not deal with topological and you just want to be like, hey, this one right here. You could also turn on masking by polygroups here, and this will give it enough range. And if that's looking a little bit much, you can go through here. Let's do again another mirror and weld, and then there we go, something like that. So now for the animation and topology part, you'd have to decide, do I want these cheeks to be separate from the beak and have the beak be its own separate mesh here? Or do I want the beak to be part of this mesh and just have concentric rings? You'd have to be very careful about how you built this mesh, because you'd want it to be, you know, you'd basically want every orifice, so you'd be the eyes and then the mouth. You'd want those rings to kind of span out. So this would actually be a pretty tough one to make it all one mesh. It'd be a little bit easier if you had the beak as a separate mesh and then this is a separate mesh, because then you could have a little bit more leeway over that control. Now, if you needed the eyelids as the same mesh, this is where you got to go to crease polygroup, turn on dynamic. We could do a union mesh for this too if we wanted to keep, you have zero mesher use this polygroup, or you could just dynamesh it and draw on your Z-sphere guides or your Z guides there. I guess that'll work-ish. And again, for maximum flexibility, I'm going to need to see like where these things terminate. It can't be vague. It has to be like, no, this goes around and then meets up on the other side. You know, so you got to kind of pick and choose how these things meet up. So we'll go ahead and go turn on topological again. And you know what? Let's turn off his head temporarily. And this might be an instance too where, you know what would be easier? Let's go ahead and delete this. And we'll go ahead and say, take this eyeball and we'll duplicate it off, and we'll go ahead and apply those subdivisions. Hold down Control Shift, and we can go slice here. Oops. Delete lower. Slice here. Slice here. Or we could go, you know what? I want, let's go ahead and turn our head back on. I want an eyelid to follow pretty much here. So about here, right about here. So I want this eyelid to be a little bit more predictable, like this, the eyelid shape. That'll work. So now I can go through here, I can hold down Control, and we'll go ahead and mask lasso the remaining pieces here, and then we'll go back to mask pin, and we'll go ahead and mask this out. So we have the area where I want my eyelid to go, and it's a little bit rough, but we can go over here and we can say edge loop mask border just to give us a little bit. Go ahead and delete hidden, and then now, actually before we do that, do I need to make more of an indication of where this comes down to a corner, maybe? Something like this. Okay, so again, edge loop mask border. I'll isolate this, delete hidden, and now we can just do another zero mesh half, depth size down to 0. Just nice even quads, and that could work. Let's do another half. Again, I want as few pieces of geo as I can handle. And then you could just cap that if you wanted to, or you could do a Q mesh, and this will give you your eyelid thickness. And if you also wanted to, you go over here, you can say, let's go ahead and do a crease edge. And we'll do a crease edge on this side. And I'm going to do a polish by features close circle, and just, it's going to maintain my volumes, but it's also going to kind of give me a little bit of a crease on that side. So that's another way you could go about kind of determining where your eyelids are going to go. Of course, if you wanted a top eyelid and a bottom eyelid and having one go into the other, that'd be a little bit different. You can go in here, and since we don't need all of this, I suppose, we could just go through here. Let's take this inside one here, and we'll say delete hidden. And then we'll say Control Shift, and we'll grab this one here. We'll do a quick auto groups, and then we'll do a mirror and weld. We'll grab these pieces here, delete hidden, and then now we can just say, you know what, temporarily I'm going to flip this back. So from here all the way to here, hold down Control Shift and then Alt. We go ahead and say split. So now go through here and I can say Q mesh, and then we'll go up one or down one, and Q mesh this. And now I'm just going to run a crease tolerance on this one, and then same thing for this one. So now we can have an eyelid that's a little bit more upper, and if you want it thicker a little bit, although that may not work too well, but what you can do is you can determine, like, okay, you know what, I want to just move these pieces here, so you can say, let's go ahead and move these out, and then just Q mesh and hold down Shift, or you could say, let's go ahead and mask these, and then Control Tap to invert, and then you can Control Tap to blur that mask, and now you can get a little bit of a softer fall off that way. Or you can just use your move brush. Let's see. Get an arrow with ZBrush 2019 using Zero Mesh without legacy activated. Zero Mesh guides. I'm on 2019.1.2 and it seems to be working fine. It might have been something they did fix with the update. Zero Mesh without legacy activated. Zero Mesh guides on. Dynamesh mesh. I don't know. Let's see. Also, I had live booleans on, so that might have been doing something weird to ZBrush. I don't know. So okay, so we have make polymesh 3D, and then it's a dynamesh, and then we have ZRemesher guides. So let's go ahead and let's do a polish by features open circle. Just kind of get a shape here. And we want to ZRemesh this, but with guides on, so BZR. And it's like, okay, I want that to follow, my ZRemesher to follow that vaguely. So ZRemesher without legacy on. So it's off, ZRemesher. Dynameshed mesh. Now, if it is a dynameshed mesh, there is a chance that the dynamesh has some bad geometry. That's probably something I should have mentioned first. So go down here to mesh integrity and say fix mesh, and then maybe close holes, run a close holes operation, and that might fix your mesh, or do a weld verts. I have an example like the wing with two different elements and the unis with the dynamesh. How do you do it so you do not join the folds? That would just be instead of so if you go through here and it's like, okay, so I have these objects and I want to dynamesh them, but it's like this has an overlapping fold, and I want them to be the same object. Like, so let's say this this upper arm here was kind of fat, and then this lower arm fit into this upper arm. But however, if you go through here and you say dynamesh, of course it's going to stick all these things together. If you do dynamesh with groups turned on, you can dynamesh and this will keep it separate. But if you want them to be the same mesh, like say, let's isolate this here. I want all of this to be the same mesh, but I do want like a fold of skin going around, and I do want this wing to kind of like plug in to this area in here. You would just have to be careful of when you do it, either you do a Boolean, which might give you a little bit more control on your ZRemesh results, because you'll have two separate polygroups that it can follow very closely. But if you wanted to dynamesh these, you can do it. Hold on. You would just have to be like, okay, you basically have to build in a little bit of room for yourself to be like, okay, I want these to be separate. I want it to be one mesh, but I want it to be separate meshes. But I want this like geometry to be separate. So it's like, but I do want this fold to go over. So if you want to make this all one object, you can turn on Dynamesh, and then it's going to kind of suck those together. Or you can try, just for a little bit more control, again, going into Remesh by Union. Turn off symmetry for whatever reason it needs you to do that. Remesh by Union. And then you can go through here and you would ZRemesh this result. So let's go ahead and, you know what, we'll say keep groups. Target polygon count of 5 is fine. Adapt size down to 0. And what the ZRemesh is going to do, we've unioned it so it's all one solid mesh, and then ZRemesh is going to keep these objects separate. You can also use Sculptris Pro to keep them separate, but if this is what you need, this would be fine. So again, these are all one separate object, but now you have a fold of skin built in. So as you're subdividing this, now you can go through and you can say, let's hit W and control tap this one, and now you can either move this fold of skin around. It's all still one mesh, but now it's not dynameshed together. Or you can go through here and you can inflate it. It'll just give you a little bit of a better transition between these two objects, obviously. You know, it gives you a little bit of a sharper transition between them. That's all one group, but you have a little bit more control. So something like that. How long does it take a model a character of AAA level from stage of simple sphere to complete textured asset, including rigging animations? Well, if you're making a AAA character in production, starting with a sphere will get you fired. So you could probably shave off a week's worth of work just starting with base meshes and stuff. If you wanted to start with the sphere, don't start with the sphere. well, start with a sphere if you're studying anatomy and you want to get better. For sure, do that. If you're doing something for a portfolio and you're pressed on time and you're in production and you don't want to get fired, start with a base mesh. And probably you're going to be starting with a base mesh anyway, just because your rigging systems or your UVs, or if you have a character create or something like that, you're going to start with a known geometry and UVs, so they're all going to be shared, and then you can wrap to form pieces between them and all that good stuff. So it allows you a lot of more flexibility. But it kind of also depends if it's just. I mean, AAA is kind of a broad term. Is it a AAA hyper-realistic fighting game? Probably a long time. It's only two characters on the screen. Your camera's going to be scrubbed all over it. First person is a little bit different in that there's first person view is going to be very high fidelity. Third person view is not going to be as high. Generally speaking, anywhere from let's say 2 weeks to 6 months. It kind of depends on the end result you're going for. Cool. Alrighty. Sorry about the late start and the hardware software issues. I'm going to head out, get some stuff done this morning before I have to go to work. So thanks for showing up, everybody, and hopefully these software and hardware issues will continue to work themselves out over time. So see you later.